I mean, there's been a couple meetings that I've wanted to walk out of, but $25,000. It's a stiff price tag.
Yeah, I think that would keep me in every single meeting of my life.
I'm trying to think if there's genuinely any meeting I've ever been in that I would be okay. No, what am I talking about? I literally do not make nearly enough money to be like, yeah, I'm gonna give up $25,000.
Hello everyone and welcome back to episode 20 of Grid Gals. This week we'll be recapping the Austrian Grand Prix, and what a weekend it was. We had a sprint race this weekend, so we'll be recapping qualifying, the sprint race, and the actual race itself. But before we get into the race recap, what's going on in the F1 world, ladies? Any hot goss?
I think my favorite thing that happened this week, and Jack, I think you will find this particularly hilarious, Helmut Marko was quoted saying that they had hired a psychologist for Yuki Tsunoda because he is the problem child due to his temper. And they straight up hired a psychologist to help this man manage his anger because he kept, taking it out on the team. Angry Yuki is so funny to me.
I think that may make me like him even more. That's incredible.
I feel like every single Red Bull driver has been kind of a problem child at some point, though. Any ones that come up from, the Red Bull Academy, I feel like they're always kind of little troublemakers.
They're feisty.
Yeah.
I don't know what they have in the water over there. Maybe it's just Red Bull. Maybe they don't give them water. It would explain a lot.
Well, we're big mental health advocates on this podcast, so love Yuki getting some healthy ways to manage his anger there, but the last season of Drive to Survive, my favorite episode by far was the Yuki episode. That still lives in my head rent-free.
It was so funny.
Now I want to go back and listen to his radios. I bet he has a lot of heated... I wonder if the team actually requested he get somebody to help him with that.
I think so, because they were basically like, people don't like working with you. You just yell at everyone.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, fair.
Yeah, I wouldn't want, a little man yelling at me all the time.
I think the only other notable thing was just the poor behavior of some of the fans in Austria.
Yeah.
And, that was discussed with the podium finishers in their post-race interviews, and it just sounded like a lot of people have had bad behavior lately.
Yeah, and I think people are better about calling it out and making it known than it ever was before. It sounded like the fans room was even going at each other. It wasn't even really involving the drivers. And I think because there's so many people, too, I'm sure it's scary.
Yeah, they did say that the Austrian Grand Prix is the largest ticketed event in Austria.
That's wild.
Really? I did not know that.
Yeah, and so, you have huge crowds. Literally the biggest event of the year. And I know Lewis Hamilton specifically called out the fact that they had the We Race as One campaign, but was a little critical of F1, basically saying that it's just words, there hasn't been any action taken, and that he would like to see actual action taken.
So. Yeah, because Vettel said that those fans should be banned from racing for life.
Yeah, I mean, if you have abusive fans, which it sounded, I don't know exactly what happened, but it sounded like it was bad.
There was racist comments, there's catcalling, and I think there was some type of fight, because I think they said physical as well as verbal.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's certain actions where, hey, if you do this, you're no longer welcome here. I think that would be totally appropriate if it is some of the things that you just talked through there. There's certain things where if you're not going to be nice, don't come back.
And I think there was an issue with one of the promoters as well, not just fans. It was an Austrian GP promoter. So it's people with influence and power too, which is obviously a bad representation of the sport.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. I think the only other thing, we didn't actually talk about it last week, but notably at Silverstone, there were protesters who got onto the track and were sitting on the track during the formation lap with the cars out on the track. And, I mean, the cars went past them.
I did not see that.
They had a pretty close brush with one of the cars.
Really?
The police got out there pretty quickly, arrested them. I believe it was a climate-related protest.
Okay.
And a lot of the drivers, like, you know, Vettel, Lewis, they were all really supportive of the cause. But they were saying, you know, it's incredibly dangerous. Not only are you putting yourselves in danger, but you're endangering drivers and fans by... I mean, basically, you're running out in traffic with, like, cars that go 200 miles an hour.
Yeah. I think we're seeing a lot of the issues with fans now popping back up and these races being so widely attended, especially with, like, the newfound audience that Formula One has. Because even at this track, they were having issues with people, like, throwing stuff on track. And I know, like, it's fun to be a fan and, like, obviously go all out, but... I think a lot of these issues we'll see moving forward, too.
Yeah, that's true, because, I mean, we became fans during COVID, and I think a lot of people did, so, you know, the first half of last year, pretty much, there weren't fans at the races. And for whatever they did during 2020, there weren't any fans. So, yeah, you're right, I guess we're starting to see issues with fans, because the fans are back.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully no more instances where fans are putting themselves in danger.
Yeah, or, like, any, like, inappropriate fans. I don't know why you can't just like a sport and not... be obnoxious, because there was a lot of issues with like them cheering when Hamilton crashed, spoiler, during practice.
Yeah, and booing. I feel like there was a lot of
booing for Verstappen and Silverstone, and like I get that they had like a heated rivalry, but I think on either side, one, I think booing is just tacky in general, but
also cheering when someone crashes
is disturbing.
Yeah, that's taking it too far.
Yeah. It's a lot of fan-related drama, but we have a lot of races to talk about. Should we start with qualifying?
Let's get into it. Well, I think you mentioned, you know, one of the biggest things was that Lewis Hamilton crashed during qualifying.
Oh, yeah, it was qualifying, not practice, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a theme throughout the weekend, and it definitely showed up starting with qualifying, was the lap times. So there were a lot of times that were getting excluded from being counted as a true lap because drivers were exiting the track limits. So the FIA got really involved with, during qualifying, the sprint race, and the race, removing lap times for drivers, which was really interesting, especially watching it. Qualifying, obviously, it really matters because then you don't have a good qualifying time, and I think notably, it was happening and they were telling them live during the session, but we also saw them remove lap times after the fact, which I think is unfair to the driver in the situation if, you know, they aren't given the heads up that they should go for another time.
Yeah, I mean, kind of jumping ahead, I guess, but seeing Checo, he, I feel like, was the most impacted in qualifying, at least, from track limits.
Yeah, and I think, you know, Q1, kind of our usual suspects got out, you know. It was a bummer that both Vettel and Ricciardo couldn't make it through, you know, some of the gals' faves, but Bottas did, so holla back, the streak is not broken. But then, yeah, in Q2, like, Norris kept getting them all deleted to the point where he was out after Q2 and had, like, a 20-second gap.
And he was really struggling with the car. He said he was afraid to brake, which, like, in an F1 car...
That's terrifying.
You should be able to trust the brakes.
Yeah, and, you know, we've seen Danny Rick struggle with the car, but Lando was struggling a lot, too, and did not look solid.
No.
And I think you could see that in the results.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you were saying, I think with Checo, the drama was the fact that he did make it to Q3.
Right.
And then after the fact had the lap time deleted. But throughout all of the sessions, the stewards were on it.
Yeah.
Like, people's lap times were getting deleted immediately after the lap. Yeah, and I guess I don't understand why that happened.
Yeah, because if they were going to say that he exceeded track limits, they should have done it while he was still on track and had the time to set another flying lap to get an appropriate qualifying position. Because they gave him what's equivalent of a 9-place grid penalty because he ended up qualifying in 4th, but then getting knocked down to 13th because they deleted all of his Q3 times as well as his Q2 time that exceeded track limits.
Well, I also think it's not fair to other drivers because with the Q2 time being deleted and then all of his Q3 because they basically said he shouldn't have been there, like, then some other driver should have been.
Right.
You know, so, like, not only is it penalizing Checo, but whoever else could have made it through. Mm-hmm. That sucked.
Yeah, I think the FIA is just bunch of narcs.
They like having power.
Yeah, it was kind of wild. And even seeing the drivers, we watched an interview with the race winners, and they were complaining about how difficult it is to stay on track, and that in their drivers meeting that they have before each race, they were trying to discuss what the track limit should be for this circuit because it is so difficult. Sounds like it got pretty heated because Vettel stormed out, but...
Yeah, and didn't they slap him with a pretty big fine for that one?
Yeah, it was 25,000 euros.
Whew. I mean, there's been a couple meetings that I've wanted to walk out of, but 25,000. It's a stiff price tag.
Yeah, I think that would keep me in every single meeting of my life.
I'm trying to think if there's genuinely any meeting I've ever been in that I would be okay. No, what am I talking about? I literally do not make nearly enough money to be like, yeah, I'm gonna give up 25,000. But I mean, I guess if I was thinking that I'm Sebastian Vettel and I make $15 million a year, if somebody paid me $15 million a year, you bet there are some meetings I would have walked out of.
For sure.
It's kind of badass. Screw you. I'm still leaving.
Yeah. Well, they also said, like, you have to wait till you're dismissed, which, like, makes me feel like I'm in grade school, because I definitely got in trouble in school because I would get up when the bell rang instead of, like, waiting for my teacher to dismiss me. But the FIA said it's a bad example for all the younger drivers, too, since he is such, like, kind of an icon in the sport. And that was kind of, like, their other, like, slap on the wrist is, like...
That's just so
people look up
petty.
to you. Yeah. It literally reminded me of grade school.
Sorry, I'm a hashtag influencer. I can't help that I'm popular.
Did you say you're the most popular girl in school?
Some would say.
We did go to school together, can confirm.
No, I was definitely in that weird middle ground of not being popular enough for people to care, but not being weird enough also for people to care. So.
Honestly, looking back though, as an adult, that is truly the sweet spot. That's the
prime place to be. Anything else happen in qualifying that's noteworthy?
Yeah, the Mercs crashed.
Oh my gosh! I can't believe I forgot about that.
You forgot about the Merc crash of 2022.
You're missing out on an opportunity to shit on two of your favorite drivers to shit on.
Okay. Listen, we all dislike Russell here.
Yeah, actually, that's true. Can we shit on Russell for a bit? Because everybody seems to love him.
Okay. He does give me good points in my fantasy team. I want a disclaimer, but other than that, the man sucks.
Yeah.
I just, like, don't get why everyone loves him. I feel like he's so many people's, like, favorite driver. He has this little, like, golden boy vibe that just irritates me. For no good reason. I don't know the man. He's a complete stranger to me.
He plays the victim a lot.
Yeah, and he's just, like, smug. I don't know. His little smirk bothers me.
He gives off an entitled vibe.
He does. He really does.
I feel like he's the type of kid that if you were... I'm also just, like, picturing that he went to a boarding school because he's, like, a posh British guy. Mm-hmm. But I feel like he would be the kid to, like, give you a swirly, but then also, like, somehow be the teacher's pet at the same time.
Oh, for sure. And this is literally all just conjecture. We have only seen, obviously, interviews.
I just feel like there's too much Russell love, and we're Russell haters here.
We kind of are. I might be a full Mercedes hater now.
You are a full Mercedes hater.
I do kind of feel bad sometimes because my coworker loves Mercedes, and he would, like, ping me. He was watching qualifying on Friday while we were working, and I had seen the whole thing. And he was like, oh, like, are you watching qualifying? I'm like, oh, yeah, I finished. And I was like, have you finished? Because
yeah, fair.
Because, like, I don't think you'd be so happy right now. And he hadn't. And I was like, oh, you talk to me after Q3. Because I think he's just watching each, like, between some meetings or something.
That's really funny.
And then he just pinged me, like, this little gif of, like, a crying guy. I'm like, oh, bless your heart.
I know. It was. I did get sort of a spoiler only because my coworker told me that qualifying was during, like, a meeting that we had.
Yeah.
And I had joked, I was like, oh, well, I'm definitely gonna be dual screening it then. But I wasn't because I actually had a lot of work I had to get done. And so he was pinging me, not meaning to spoil it, but, like, I told him I was watching it. And really, he just told me that Danny Rick was slow as shit, which I guess is... Does that even qualify as a spoiler at this point in the season?
No.
Oh. I'm right here, guys. I'm literally sitting right here.
Well, hey, here's some happy news for you, McLaren gal. They were saying in qualifying, I don't know which of the commentators is, like, super obsessed with the stats, but apparently every season in his F1 career, Lando has had a DNF at the 11th race of the season.
Yeah.
Which, just like weird coincidence, I guess.
Like a little curse.
But this was the 11th race of the season. We're officially halfway. Holla back.
Woot woot.
And Lando finished.
That's awesome.
So there's some happy McLaren news for you.
Breaking curses all around this season.
We love to see it.
This is relevant because we're talking about qualifying, but I know we talked about how McLaren's no longer really putting in a lot of investments to the car, especially now halfway through the season, looking at where they're at in the points and the Constructors' Cup. It would take nothing shy of a miracle to really turn the season around for them. But I hope there is some balance of, obviously, Norris saying the brakes. He was afraid to use the brakes isn't a good thing, where hopefully they're not making decisions that are risking the safety of the drivers. Yeah, I wasn't surprised to see him at the back of the grid.
I did see something that was pretty funny when, so Hamilton crashed, and Hamilton actually admitted it was all his fault.
Yeah.
Like,
what?
Yeah, just pure driver error, and they were saying this doesn't happen.
That never happens. What?
Yeah, doesn't really happen that he crashes like that, and definitely doesn't happen that he fully takes responsibility. But they were joking. Somebody was like, an engineer telling Russell, like, okay, Hamilton just crashed. You know how they always say, like, copy that?
Mm-hmm.
And then they were like, and Russell did copy that.
Like
immediately after.
Later.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, what a disaster.
I think he said it was the wind, though. I think Russell said it was the wind.
The wind blew him off track?
Yeah, I guess he was like, tight corners, high speeds, had an errant gust of wind, and just threw the balance off or something. I don't know.
I'm sure, yeah, but that's interesting. That was a long night, I'm sure, for the Mercedes mechanics.
And they did get a shout out later in the weekend for their hard work.
Yeah, I mean, that's something Hamilton's always been pretty good about, is shouting out his team, which is important to do. I feel like when people watch a sport, they always just focus on the drivers and forget about how many other people are involved in the team.
Can we talk about the dog cam?
Oh my gosh, Roscoe Cam.
That was the cutest thing.
That was really cute. So Lewis Hamilton's dog is Roscoe, who also does like dog modeling. I'm pretty sure he gets like $5,000 per photo shoot.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
How did I not know this? That fits so hard. Of course Hamilton would have a dog model.
I love when people like resemble their pets, or like you have the same vibe as your pet,
Yeah.
Roscoe and Hammy definitely have
They're
the same
both
vibe.
models.
Yeah. And he threw a GoPro on Roscoe for, was it Silverstone? I think he put a cam on. And so it was funny to see all the different views that the dog had. Honestly, a really well-trained dog. It just kind of follows him everywhere, him or Angela.
Super well-trained dog. Europeans have way better dogs than Americans. Americans let their dog off a leash all the time. And it doesn't come when it's called, so it's not an off-leash dog. And that's personal pet peeve of mine. Train your dogs better.
This is a public service announcement. Train your pets.
I mean, I love dogs, don't get me wrong, but like, American dogs are not well behaved, which, kind of fits.
It does fit. On to the sprint?
On to the sprint.
I know I've mentioned this before, but I love sprint races. A lot of fun to see a little bit of action pre-race time.
I kind of have mixed feelings. I like it because I feel like there's more to watch on the weekend, because I'm not going to lie, I'll watch practice if I'm really bored, but usually I don't. Usually I just do quali and the race. So it's nice to have like a third thing to watch. I didn't expect this weekend to be a sprint. I don't know why. For some reason I was expecting Silverstone to be. Maybe because they did it last year at Silverstone.
Yeah. I wonder how they choose the tracks. This track in general, I think they could have done with only 23 laps that they did in the sprint, because I feel like the actual race was really long in terms of laps. Because what was it, like 70 something?
It was 71 laps, which makes sense because they're short laps.
Yeah.
That's the same as like Monaco. I think it felt long because we were really, really hungry and we were waiting for our food to get here.
That's probably true.
And our food was over an hour delayed, so I think we were just a little crabby.
Yeah, maybe. I really enjoyed the sprint itself. It's good to get drivers who have had issues in the weekend the chance to make them up. So like Checo made up a lot of places in the sprint. You saw the Mercedes make up for their qualifying positions. And I feel like it just gives some drivers more of a chance to get points that wouldn't normally.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm glad that the actual race is obviously longer than that, because the sprint I thought went by really
super
fast.
Quickly. Yeah.
Really fast.
Yeah. 23 would be too short for a full race, but I feel like they could have done with like 50.
I don't really know if I have an opinion. I was trying to think, and I'm like, maybe not. But did you hear? They confirmed they're doing 6 sprints next year.
Wow.
6.
Damn.
That's a lot to put on the drivers and the whole team.
Well, and also, like, again, like you were saying, how did they pick the tracks? Like, which 6 is it going to be?
And are they going to increase the budget?
Bro, I did not know.
I mean, I hope so, because that's obviously more parts, more chance for the cars to get damaged.
More gasolina.
Oh my goodness.
But, speaking of the budget, I guess we didn't cover this earlier. Didn't you say that they finally made some sort of accommodation for the inflation in the budget cap?
They have, yeah. I believe it's like 3.1% or something. So that's pretty significant.
Good, because, I mean, that didn't seem fair. Like, there is a lot that's out of their control on that one.
Yeah, and you don't want to see teams not be able to race just because of money. Like, that's absurd.
Poor Alonso. Alonso had a hell of a weekend, and...
He did. Ocon did really, really well this weekend.
Yeah, Alpine were saying that they're the 4th fastest team on the grid, and, like, I believe them.
Yeah.
Those Alpines are quick.
They're consistent, too.
I really wanted to see Alonso do well, especially when I started reading, like, kind of how, like, sneaky he is. Mm-hmm. Not, like, sneaky, but, like, pretty actually smart. Because during practice, there's a practice between qualifying and the sprint, and he was driving over his starting place to clean up his racing line from where he would take off on the sprint. And then to just not even see him actually start, I was so upset. His car didn't even start the formation lap. They still had the tire covers on, so I don't know what the issue actually was, but...
Yeah, I'm not sure I caught that, but I did know that he was struggling with mechanical issues. And poor Giovanni.
I know. That kid cannot catch a break.
Not at all.
He has had one heck of a rookie season, and definitely felt for him on the sprint. Because I think there was just, again, mechanical issues.
What do they do into this man's car?
I have no idea.
That is just the worst string of luck ever, or I don't know.
But I feel like the rest of the sprint went as I expected it to go.
Yeah, relatively unremarkable.
McLaren's made up a couple places.
They did.
Which put him in a great position for the race.
Okay, let's talk about, like, the actual problem child of the Red Bull family lately.
Gasly.
Yuki might have a temper, but Gasly has just made his shit everybody else's problem.
He started the Silverstone crash.
Yep. And he upset me this race. And he had a crash with Hamilton in the sprint.
Yeah, this man, like, Pierre, be better.
Pierre.
I thought you were going to sing us a little song.
I just love saying it with the French accent.
Oh,
Pierre.
I thought for sure you would talk about Hammy and Schumacher. Hamilton and Schumacher had a pretty long battle for most of the sprint because Hamilton was trying to get past Schumacher, who was behind Magnussen, getting DRS.
Oh, yeah.
And, I mean, really struggled to get around Schumacher, and Schumacher was definitely putting up a fight. And then, of course, Hamilton got on the radio and was like,
Yeah, he
this
was.
guy's exceeding track limits.
Little narc.
See?
Little narc action.
Yeah.
Yeah, Schumacher has come to play with the big boys between his battle with Verstappen last weekend, fighting with Hamilton now.
Mm-hmm.
He's showing up.
And he was just outside the points. Hamilton actually stole 8th from him and ended up taking the last points of the sprint, but put up a good fight. And Magnussen ended up getting points, which is good for Haas.
Yeah, Haas has looked very solid in the midfield so far.
Mm-hmm.
So on to Sunday?
On to Sunday.
Wait. I guess we should say who won the sprint.
Oh, should we?
Well, I don't know. I don't really care, but it's your man. Just kidding. I care.
I mean, Max won the race, but Leclerc got second and Sainz got third.
Hell yeah!
So, our usual suspects for the weekend. But Checo also made it up to 5th, which is really good for Red Bull since he started out in 13th. But then I think, on to the race.
On to the race.
So I think the reason I was really upset with Gasly is because he took Checo out immediately.
Yeah, like, again, Gasly needs to get it together.
Mm-hmm.
And then they ended up just retiring Checo because he was so far behind at that point, he wasn't ever going to catch the pack. So Gasly, I need him to get his shit together.
He's causing too many problems.
And I feel like he wasn't like this last year, and he really doesn't have that much of an excuse this year. It's not like this is his rookie season.
No, I mean, he's been driving for a couple of years, and honestly, he's a really good driver.
Yeah.
So I don't really know what's happening there, but yeah, that was definitely disappointing to see. Checo was on my fantasy team, so I was bummed.
Yeah.
I was pretty bummed.
And to see him make up all those places in the sprint just to get knocked out immediately.
Well, and so he didn't retire immediately.
No,
he
didn't.
pitted, came back out, and Checo is really good at fighting his way back through the pack. I feel like that's one of those things that he's kind of known for at this point.
Yeah.
But then, yeah, I mean, just the residual damage from the incident overall, just wasn't able to be competitive today.
Yeah. I think the Red Bull car was lacking in some pace, too. I think Max even said that in his interview afterwards.
Yeah, it was definitely lacking in pace compared to the Ferraris, because Max got away good at the start and led the race for the first, good little while. And then him and Leclerc were kind of swapping back and forth in between some pits, which was interesting because I think initially they thought that most teams were going to be going for a one-stop strategy. Mm-hmm. No one had a one-stop. Everybody was in 2, 3, I think somebody even pitted 4 times. Mm-hmm. The tire degradation they were saying this weekend was particularly rough.
Yeah. But do you want to go ahead and read the race results and we can do a deeper dive?
We always get a bit ahead of ourselves here. Starting from the bottom, we did have 3 DNFs overall, and we lost Checo Perez from Red Bull, Latifi from Williams, and heartbreakingly enough, Sainz from Ferrari.
And that was a scary one.
Yeah, that was scary, and we can get to that when we debrief more, but glad he's okay. And then in terms of actual places, we had Sebastian Vettel from Aston Martin in 17th, Yuki Tsunoda from AlphaTauri in 16th, we had Pierre Gasly from AlphaTauri in 15th, in 14th from Alfa Romeo, we had Zhou Guanyu. In 13th with Aston Martin, we had Lance Stroll. Finishing 12th for Williams was Alex Albon. And finishing 11th for Alfa Romeo was Valtteri Bottas. Moving up into the points positions, we had Alonso from Alpine finishing 10th. Daniel Ricciardo from McLaren finishing in 9th. We had K-Mag from Haas finishing 8th. Lando Norris from McLaren in 7th. Mick Schumacher with Haas in 6th. And then we had Esteban Ocon with Alpine in 5th. George Russell with Mercedes in 4th. And on the podium, we had Lewis Hamilton with Mercedes in 3rd. Max Verstappen with Red Bull in 2nd. And our race winner with Ferrari, Charles Leclerc. And thank God, because I really was not sure if he was going to be able to finish the race, especially seeing Sainz's issues.
Yeah.
That was a little scary.
Definitely on the edge of our seat for the end of that race, the last 10 laps.
Yeah, towards the end of the race, Sainz's engine caught fire. It was really scary because he pulled over and was trying to get out of the car, and the fire was spreading, and he wasn't able to get out of the car initially because he couldn't stop it. I don't know what was happening, if it was his brakes or something.
Yeah, it was rolling backwards.
Yeah, the marshals had to come out and hold the car just so he could get out of it, and then they extinguished the fire, but that was a little dicey there for a minute.
Yeah, and another bad car issue for Ferrari. I think that they're struggling with reliability, I feel like, in almost every single race now. Because even Leclerc, when he was finishing his last couple laps, was really scared about his throttle because it was getting stuck. It was sticky.
Yeah, his throttle pedal was not fully releasing, and so I guess he never got to 0 throttle. The last 10 or 15 laps of the race, he was on 20 to 30% throttle the entire time.
Yeah.
Even going into corners and trying to brake, he still has the throttle down. Mm-hmm. Which is terrifying.
Yeah.
Well, starting from the beginning, right there at the start, I know we were shitting on Russell earlier, but he was the reason that Perez went to the gravel.
I could have sworn that was Gasly, and now I feel like I have to take that back. I mean, Gasly has been causing a lot of issues, so I don't completely take back my earlier comments, but...
Gasly still needs to get it together, but so does George Russell, because you're right. That absolutely was George Russell, and he got a penalty for it.
He did. He got a 5-second time penalty.
Which also, I know we talked about this for qualifying, but they were handing out penalties like it was candy for track limits.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, so many penalties.
A lot of flags were coming out. A couple penalties were handed out.
The FIA is power hungry. They're just wanting to interject themselves whenever possible, and that is my hot take.
Yeah, and honestly, I kind of have a bone to pick with the commentators on this race. I don't know who they were, but they weren't our usual Sky Sports guys, and I miss the usuals.
Yeah, whoever gets really into the garages and talks like stats, that guy was missing. And they were missing all of the penalty comments that they could have made because we were just reading it on screen, but I feel like so many people got penalties and exceeded track limits. There are a lot of like those warning flags, as well as just like verbal warnings. I think they got a couple warnings before they got shown a flag, before they got a penalty, and the commentators missed all of that.
Yeah, I don't even remember what they were talking about, but they weren't even that helpful.
No.
Like, normally I love listening to the commentators, and I think they add a lot to the race experience, but this week it definitely fell flat.
Completely agree. And after Silverstone last weekend, it was so exciting, and then honestly, it was a good race still, and exciting with the sprint. A lot happened this weekend. Still some highlights, but I didn't feel like... I was riding the highs of Silverstone, and...
But I feel like your McLarens did so much better this race. They ended up, 7th and 9th?
They did. That was one highlight was... And Danny Rick there was leading Norris for a little bit, which was cool to see. Yeah, they got points. Very exciting. After I talked about them last race.
See? You did speak it into existence.
I spoke it into existence, and this is what happened. So, again, just really upset with the McLaren team. Get it together, boys.
Because I think that's as good as they're going to be for the season, is fighting for that midfield. And
yeah, we're not even... I mean, if we did get a McLaren on the podium, that would be exciting.
Would love that.
And that would help with our prediction of having 8 of the 10 teams get on the podium this season, but I'm not holding my breath.
Fair.
I believe in it. They did last year. I think they can do it again.
Yeah.
I think just certain things have to happen in a race.
Well, and I think it's, such difference in the pace, like just the midfield from the leading teams, and then also even within the leading teams. Like Red Bull looked off the pace this weekend.
They did, yeah.
For a while, Leclerc won, but yeah, I think Max was like pretty solidly, like 3 seconds behind him for a good chunk of the end of the race.
Mm-hmm. And then Hamilton was 40 seconds behind Max. And I know a lot of the pit stops played into that, but I think a lot of it was just the difference in cars.
Yeah, and Russell was even like kind of far behind Hamilton in 4th.
Yeah.
Kind of odd to see the way it shook out.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was Austria.
And what's next? France?
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of a break, and then they head to Paul Ricard in France.
Oui, oui, bonjour.
You'll have to do the 5 fun facts of that one. Our French-speaking gal.
Je parlais français un petit peu.
Ooh, get ready.
So thanks for listening to this episode. If you like what you heard, you can find all of our episodes on anywhere you listen to podcasts. Go ahead and like and subscribe to all of our social medias, and drop us a note if you have any questions or comments. I know we've had quite a few in our financials, so happy to do another episode and nerd out for that one again. So go ahead and drop us any of those questions at gridgals@gmail.com.
And that's the checkered flag for this session. We'll catch you back on the grid next week.